So we start a new book tonight. You guys excited? Oh, come on. You got to be more excited than that. You know, we're starting a new book tonight. We're in the wilderness. How many of you guys love the wilderness? Love the wilderness. The wilderness is exciting. The wilderness. I mean, what's not to love about the wilderness? I mean, it's hot. There's no air conditioning. Poison ivy. Yeah. Snakes, scorpions. You're just like excited, right? What do you love about the wilderness? Well, here's the thing, guys. It's in the wilderness that Yahweh revealed himself to his people. And let's not forget that. Especially when we understand, there are times in our life when we, metaphorically say it's a wilderness time in our life, or a dry season, or whatever the case may be. The point of that being, it's in these times when Yahweh has chosen to reveal himself to his people. Let's not forget that. That in the wilderness is when Yahweh made himself known. He brought them out of their normal everyday things, Egypt, who this is the only way of life they'd ever known. It's all they ever had. And he brought them out of that so that he could bring them to himself. And he displaced all the distractions. And the Red Sea kind of finalized that. And isn't it interesting, through this book, man, we find more strife, contention, rebellion, and back-talking and all that in this book than any other book in the Torah. And they all have it in there, but it's more in this book. And you want to know why? Because this book is all about family. This book is all about how we live as a family together. And we'll see that as we go through it and as we read it. Because this is what Israel was. Guys, Israel, united together, was a family. And what are we? We are a family of Elohim. We're going to emphasize that tonight. We're going to focus on being one body. And how does that affect our life? How does that affect how we live? Because it does, right? Okay, so let's jump into it. I hope you're ready to get into the book of Numbers, all you accountants, John over there. All you accountants getting ready to start in tallying, break out your abacus, and we're going to start counting, right? No, not really. It's kind of like when we go through and we're studying the Torah. Genesis, oh my gosh, this narrative is just kind of wild, but there's some nice stories in there, right? Exodus, oh great, these plagues and they come out, and that's all we really remember of this, Exodus. Leviticus, oh man, that's a bunch of laws for these Levites, that's too much for me. Let's skip that book. And then Numbers, math, really, math? I don't like math. Okay, let's skip forward to that. Deuteronomy, oh man. You see, it's like, we say this over and over again. What we call something affects how we approach it. And if we understand that the book of Numbers, we call it Numbers because, it's counting people, right? Okay, but the book of Numbers, that's not the emphasis of that book. The book of Numbers emphasizes life in the wilderness, which the Hebrew name of the book is Bamidbar. Bamidbar means in the wilderness. There's something interesting about that as well. As the word midbar is the sense of driving or a pasture or an open field, a desert, a wilderness, but check it out. Medaber is also speech, spelled exactly the same way. So midbar is wilderness, but medaber is also your speech. So Bamidbar is the beit at the beginning of the word, right? What's a beit? A house. Well, you guys have been studying your Hebrew. Awesome. You've been doing something these past, 6 weeks, right? So it's a house. So what happens if we put the house in front of this speech? We get something like, in the house that is from the speech. In other words, you live in what you build. Boy, that kind of puts it in a new perspective, doesn't it? And as we go through this book of Numbers, we find, like I said, more than any other book, things that people say get them in more trouble in this book than any of the other ones in the Torah. Matter of fact, it's in this book where the people are like, that's it, we're going to die in the wilderness. And God said, fine, have it your way. He did. It's in there. So, again, we really need to be careful, not just how we approach the word, but what we speak about it. What do we say in relationship to the word? And furthermore, what do we say in relationship to Yahweh? And what do we say in relationship to our brothers and sisters? Because everything that we say has an impact on the people we're supposed to be in relationship with. See? You can't talk about someone or look down on someone and then not expect to have disdain in your heart when you see them. So we need to make sure that the things that we speak toward one another and about one another are things that Yahweh desires for us to speak. And if you have a problem with someone, what are we supposed to do? Go to them and try to resolve it with them. See, but unfortunately we find things in this book kind of like Korah. You know, I got an issue with Moses and Aaron. It's really not an issue with them. The issue was with him. We'll get into that later, much later. But so when he has an issue with them, he kind of goes around to try to find other people to join with him in his issue to come against. And what was the result? Well, Korah died because of it. You know, the rebellion against Yahweh at the tabernacle kind of a thing, you know. So again, we need to be careful of the things that we say. What does Scripture say? Out of the mouth, the heart speaks. In other words, you know, if it's in there, at some point it's got to come out. Okay? So we need to be careful. And so we need to approach this book as life in the wilderness. What is the Father trying to teach us? It's not about, man, this life is hard. It's about, I've removed all these other distractions from your life so that you would focus on me. See, it's in the wilderness when we learn it's not about me, it's about him. Right? And when life gets hard, what's one of the first things that we do? God, why are you doing this to me, right? Well, maybe the Father is allowing some things in our life to get our attention, to draw it back to him. Or maybe we're just suffering the consequences of our own actions and not wanting to turn around and admit that, which we find that here too. Right? Again, the wilderness, it's not just proving or testing, it is making us known to us. For what purpose, though? Not just to say, oh, I'll see how terrible we are. That's not it at all. It's about learning to walk in his ways and about learning to walk with him. Because, like I said, in the wilderness is where he revealed himself to his people. That's a glorious thing. But it's what we do with that has the impact, right? Okay, Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, shows us how to draw near to Yahweh, how to have a relationship with others. He says, you are a holy people, right? And as a holy people, how do we live? How is our relationship with Yahweh in our midst? You know, we could say, well, we don't have a temple or a tabernacle because we are the temple, right? Well, here's the thing. That doesn't change the fact that he said be holy. Matter of fact, it would even intensify it. You know, it's one thing to say I'm going to go to a tabernacle, which is a holy place, and it's another thing to say you are a holy place. So again, we learn in Leviticus what the Father desires for us, and now, Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, look at it this way, we now get an opportunity to walk out what we've just been taught. Isn't that amazing? Why are you not smiling? Isn't that awesome? You now have an opportunity to do what you were just explained. See, that's life. That's what the Father's desiring, because you don't really get it until you start to walk in it. And when you start to walk in it, that's when you start to understand things. You know? So that's what the Father's calling us to do. So the point of all this that we're finding is family bonding in the wilderness. Oh boy. We're having, this is like, in all reality, when they came out of Egypt, it kind of was like a big family reunion, guys. Because when they were in Egypt, they were separated by their duties, by their responsibilities, and by their jobs. Right? They were separated. Okay, all you stone cutters, you're over there. All you who are making the bricks, you're over there. All you who are hauling the bricks, you're over there. Right? When they were brought out of Egypt and gathered together, how were they enumerated? By families. They were no longer to be associated by what they did, but by who they are. See, and that's a completely different world. Now, they're having this family reunion with a bunch of people together who they may not know, really. But now they have the opportunity to do that. And Yahweh, still in our midst, still the words that he declared at Sinai are still within us today. We find things like Psalm 68:17, where it says, the Lord is among them as in Sinai, in the holy place. But interesting in the Hebrew, because it reads, Adonai bam sine bekodesh. Literally, mechanically, Adonai in them, Sinai in the holy. Mechanical translation, that's what it is. But what he's saying is, Adonai is in them like Sinai in his holy sanctuary. So if we say we are a sanctuary, what are we saying? God is with us. He is in you. And so we need to live life that way. So when we come together and we start to acknowledge that he is our Elohim and he is not just with us, but in us, that we could take the Sinai experience with us because we are a sanctuary. We are a place for his presence to dwell. Okay? And that is when if we approach the book of Numbers like that, it will change how you read it. Okay? All right, so now let's get into it. Numbers chapter 1, verse 1. So Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting on the first day of the second month, in the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt. They've been in the wilderness for how long now? 1 year. They've now entered the second year, right? So it's been 1 full year, right? And he said, take a census of all the congregation of the people of Israel. How? How are they counted? By clans, that's by families, by fathers' houses, according to the number of names, every male, head by head. So when a census was taken, I mean, most often if someone takes a census, what do they want to know? They want to know, governments and things like that. When they take a census, they want to know how many people they got and what kind of services they can provide if they needed. What about military service? How many people do we have military age? What type of programs or funding or whatever. They want to know where their people are. Okay, biblical times they took a census. It was most often world domination, military kingship, what kind of army can we have? If we're attacked, what are our resources? Kind of a thing. But when Yahweh took the census, it wasn't really, well, can I overtake the land? No, that's not it at all, because we know he already said the land is theirs. It didn't matter what their number was. Look at Gideon, right? So when Yahweh is counting his people, it's more so for us than him. It's more so for us to realize that when we are counted with him, I mean, you've heard the expression, stand up and be counted. What does that mean? That means you're counting yourself as part of something, that you're joining with and taking action with something. This is what Yahweh is asking us to do. That we are standing up and being counted as I am so-and-so, but not just that. In our counting, we are told to remember son of so-and-so from this household. See, it's not just who we are, but what is the heritage Yahweh has called us to be a part of. Because a lot of people, when they were in Egypt, they were known by their jobs, by their duties, by their responsibilities. They were no more than a number, pun intended. But here, Yahweh is separating them by families and telling them to dwell together as families. And we're going to explore that family of a people called Israel in this parsha. Okay? So when we read this, it reads, Le mishpachotam. What's mishpacha? Family. Okay? Le mishpachotam is and to their families. Levet avotam, the house of their fathers. Okay? Now, interesting, because I found some really neat commentary on here that I just want to share with you because I just thought it was awesome, right? And so I didn't want to just say it. I wanted you to see it, okay? So, and I don't want to misquote it, so I put it up here for you. Individual members do not form the national congregation directly and immediately. Do you understand that? Individual members do not form the national congregation directly or immediately. In other words, me as an individual doesn't automatically make me part of a nation. I have to be willing to be counted as such. All right, let's keep going. The all-comprising national congregation consists of 2 concentric circles. The congregation is formed by tribes. And in every tribe, by families. So that the men are to be counted in their belonging to the family, and the families belonging to a tribe. And the numbers contained in each tribe added together to form the sum total of Adat B'nai Israel, the assembly of the sons of Israel. In other words, they are counted by tribe, but in order to be counted by a tribe, they had to be part of a family. They had to be part of their father's house before they could be counted as part of a tribe. Now I'm thinking, put this in a spiritual manner. Before we can be counted as part of a people called Israel, we have to be counted as part of the house. We have to come to the Father's house. We have to be brought into the Father's house before we can say we are part of His family. Right? All right, let's keep going. The individuals first group themselves into families into tribes. Finally, the tribes in the higher union of all originating form one common house into what? The house of Israel. From their spreading out from one common stem, the tribes are called matot, really branches. Think about this for a second. The tribes, the same word for tribe is the same word for branch. Now, if I say a branch, what do you think of? A tree. Because what does a branch belong to? A tree. Take Romans 11. The word for tribes is branches. And branches are a part of the tree. So if we are a part of the tree, if we are a part of Israel, we have to be on a branch somewhere. Isn't it interesting that even now, today, we use the analogy of family trees? God used it in His Torah. It wasn't translated that way, so we didn't realize it. Right? Okay, let's keep reading. Really branches, as in Ezekiel 19, and then from the various families belonging to the common branch, look at this. What was the common branch? The original family home. The one, Beit Israel, the house of Israel, consisted of 12 Bati Avot, 12 house of the fathers. So what he's saying here in this commentary is that all the people that were counted had to be part of a family, that were part of a tribe, that all tribes together of these 12 fathers, 12 families, formed the 12 tribes into one house of Israel. So how many tribes are there again? 12? Where are they? You say, well, they're in the land. Well, one tribe's in the land. Where's the rest of them? See? So when we say we're part of the family of a people called Israel, how do we come to know that? How do we come to discover where the rest of this is? Yeah? Because when people were assembled together, pulled out of their bondage, pulled out of their oppression, delivered and redeemed, brought through the water, brought to the mountain where Yahweh revealed Himself and gave them His word and His Spirit, how did He assemble them all together? He called them all out of Egypt, and notice, when they came out of Egypt, He then assembled them into tribes. When they came out, I could be off on this, but I didn't see where they came out. They came out tribe by tribe. I see when they came out, and then they were numbered by tribe, which meant there had to be a gathering in to do that. Kind of makes me think of prophetic last days, right? All right. Romans 11, 16 to 18. So if the dough offered as first fruits is holy, so is the whole lump. And if the root is holy, so are the branches. If the root is holy, so is the what? Branches. Verse 17. But if some of the branches were broken off, and you, although a wild olive shoot, were grafted in among the others, and now share in the nourishing root of the olive tree, do not be arrogant toward the branches. Because if you are, remember, it's not you that support the root, but the root supports you. See, things to remember, right? Romans 12:4. For as in one body we have many members, and the members do not all have the same function. Think of the tribes. So all the tribes, they had all these people, they all had different jobs, all had different purposes, all had different personalities. We even see where each of the tribes had different traits, like character traits, things in common, right? So they all had their own, let's say, mission in life, but yet they all came together to form one people with a common goal. And that's what it's telling us. Though we are many members, we are one body. Right? And what does verse 5 say? So we, though many, are one body in Messiah, but individually members of what? One another. So we are members of one body, but individually we are members of one another. So we can't just say that my relationship with Yahweh is just my relationship with Yahweh and has no bearing on anybody else. Because our relationship with the Father does have an effect on our relationship with others. Ephesians 4:22. So put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires. Sometimes we need to be reminded of that, don't we? Sometimes we need to be reminded of the old nature, the old ways, the old things that were not submitted to Yahweh needs to be put off. You know? Sometimes, we go out in the morning and we kind of pick it up at the door. We need to keep that off so that we can put on, like we talk about the full armor of God, right? Put on righteousness, salvation, truth, all these, right? Faith. Keep walking in it. All right. Verse 23. And to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. Verse 25. Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members of what? One another. Israel, when they were gathered around the tabernacle or gathered around Mount Sinai, right, they couldn't say, though they were assembled tribe by tribe, they couldn't say, well, this tribe's better than that tribe. And who do you guys think you are? We're better than that tribe. No, because they all had a purpose within the community of a people together called Israel. Okay? And we need to start to see ourselves as part of something bigger than just me. Right? One nation under God. Where does that sound familiar? Right? One nation under God, right? Okay, so the whole nation is looked at and called as, what's the word? One household. Beit Yisrael. So the whole nation is called Beit Yisrael. The whole nation is called the house of Israel. Notice that. I thought they were tribes. They are tribes, but remember, families. And in Hebrew, house is not always, the structure itself. What is the function of the house? It houses or protects what is inside of it, which is the family. So all of Israel as one household, Beit Israel, the house of Israel, as the children of one man, Bnei Israel, sons of Israel. And on the other hand, in this union shall remain and are considered as separate unions, mishpachot. What's mishpachot again? Families. Forms the peculiarity of Jewish nationality. But considering the nation as the house of Israel, and all its nationals as the children of Israel, the conception of the Jewish nation protected from taking itself to be without the necessity of a real internal union, or to imagine that the appearance of a united representation of a model nation is a mere fiction. Look at this. It must always, in all times, make itself thought of in the essential, real, universal calling of its members, who by a common factor are, what? One. Each of them must feel himself to be and to present himself as part of this unity. So if we are counted as a people called the people of Yahweh, a people set apart, a people of Israel, we must see ourselves as part of being in unity. Now notice, unity is not uniformity. We're really big here, especially in America, about, as an individual, right? Here we are, everything's rebellion, fight for this, fight for that, fight for the other thing, and unite with nobody, But we need to be able to learn to walk in unity. Unity does not mean we say everything exactly alike. It doesn't mean we think exactly the same ways. What it means is we have a common purpose and a common goal. And we can work together with one another to that end. See? It's not uniformity. Right? It's not like we all have to do it exactly like this. We're not, the Army, Navy, Marines, we're not that. We are a people of Yahweh, but we need to learn how to fit in our functions so that the family as one body can function properly. So the hundreds of thousands of the house of Israel, who? The hundreds of thousands of the house of Israel do not come to the nation as a disjointed mass, but we have again, le'mishpachotam levet avotam, which is according to their families and their fathers' houses. They're not just a mass of people, all just this influx of people from all over, wherever, coming in. No, they come in according to families and tribes. And when they're gathered in together, they're gathered in together and known and acknowledged as families and tribes. Now here's the thing. There are people who came out of Egypt with the people of Israel who were not natural-born descendants of Israel. So how did they fit in with these people of Israel? It's like, so these are the tribes of Israel, and all you guys who do not belong to part of these tribes, you guys can go on that part over there. Is that how it worked? No. These people who came out were a place in home among the tribes of Israel. What makes us think it's going to be any different in the latter days? So according to their families, and these families in reference to the tribe to which they belong, the number of the men in each tribe is noted, and the families in each tribe kept separately, and each family, Bamidbar Shemot, is numbered according to their names. Every member of the family is counted by name, so that each one joins the whole. Each one joins, let's check it out, the whole. Conscious of the importance of his personality to the nation, and indeed, every male, head by head, literally is how it says. Each person has personally to hand in his half shekel and report as so-and-so from this or that family of this or that tribe. When each person was counted, they each had to come up with their half shekel, because remember, they were counted head by head, but not literally by the person as a person. They were counted by the half shekel, right? Which the half shekels were used for the service of the sanctuary. So here, they're counted by the half shekels, and as the person came to be counted, they were counted as, yeah, I'm David. It was, I am David, son of so-and-so of this tribe. See, and so they were numbered and associated tribe by tribe, family by family. Kind of repeating that because I feel it's important. We're looking at individuality and individualism. Two contrasting things, really. Individuality means I am unique and I'm a valued member of the team. You are an individual, you are unique, just like everybody else. Right? You're an individual, you have things that make you, you. Your character, your life, that's fine. Individualism means I am not a team player at all. It means I am an individual. Everything I do is about me, for me. It's all me, right? So we're not talking about individualism. We're talking about individuality. When you are redeemed, God is not saying you have to change your personality. He's saying he changes you. He changes the core of who you are. He uses your thought, the way you think, the way you do things, and approaching it that way. So you remain you, but he's reforming you as a new creation into a better you than you could have been without him. Right? Ezekiel 37, 11 through 14 says, so he said to me, Son of man, these bones are what? The whole house of Israel. What was the deal with the bones? We'll get back to this later. What was the deal with the bones? They were all over the place, scattered everywhere, all over. But then by the Spirit, he said, prophesy to the bones and prophesy to the wind. The word for wind is also ruach, for spirit. He said, prophesy to the bones, and that all the bones start to come together. So in other words, all the pieces and parts start to come together. When they come together, they form one whole house of Israel. He doesn't say this is just one tribe. He says this is the whole house of Israel. They're disjointed and scattered all over the place. I say, hold on to that, because we'll come back to that. But reading it, so these bones are the whole house of Israel. Verse 12, prophesy to them, say, thus says the Lord God, behold, I will open your graves. Do what? Open your graves, raise you from your graves, bring you to the land of Israel. And you shall know I am Yahweh when I open your graves, raise you from your graves, O my people, and I will put my spirit in you, and you shall live. And I will place you in your own land, and you shall know I am Yahweh. And I have spoken, and I will do it, declares Yahweh. So he's saying there's a time he's going to regather all of Israel that has been scattered, make them new, form them as one new man, one people that are his, and bring them back to the land of inheritance that he promised to them. Has that happened yet? No. No, it hasn't. All right, let's keep reading. Ezekiel 47:21. So you shall divide this land among you according to what? The tribes of Israel. And you shall allot as an inheritance for yourselves of the sojourners who reside among you. Wait, allot for yourself and who? The sojourners who reside among you, and have had children among you, and they shall be to you as native-born children of Israel. With you they shall be allotted an inheritance where? Among the tribes of Israel. And in whatever tribe the sojourner resides, there you shall assign him his inheritance, declares the Lord God. So within whatever tribe someone is residing and living and being a productive member of society, guess what? They're a part of that tribe. So Yahweh is saying he's bringing his people back, bringing them in, and it's still a tribe and a family thing, guys. It's a covenant thing. So you are called to be part of a people. You're called to be part of a people, not just called to be part of a person. Part of a people. As such, will we learn to work together for the benefit of the whole? Which it's important, isn't it? If our body itself functioned solely for the purpose of keeping this ear happy, this left ear, everything we do is for the purpose of this left ear getting what it wants, what's going to happen to the rest of the body? It's not going to work right? It's not going to develop properly. It's not going to do all that. I mean, so it's weird, right? So as such, each part of the body has to function the way it's supposed to function, with the wholeness of the body as its center. Okay? So the question is our own desires more important than the welfare of those around us? Will we follow the pillar of cloud or the fire when the camp moves, or will we complain about being inconvenienced? Now, that doesn't sound like us at all, does it? Complain? Nah, none of us complain. I don't even know the meaning of the word complain. Maybe we should look it up. What do you think? No man is an island. Good to say it that way? The scripture backs it up. Romans 14:7-8. For none of us lives only in relation to himself, and none of us dies only in relation to himself. For if we live in relation to the Lord. And if we die in relation to the Lord. So whether we live or die, we belong to the Lord. Ecclesiastes 4:9-12. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. We can do better together than on our own. So, as tribes, they had certain places to camp around the tabernacle, right? Absolutely. They had the 12 tribes. They camped in groups of threes around the tabernacle, and each one under a main head tribe. Okay? So towards the east, you had Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun, all camped under the tribe of Judah. Okay? To the south, you had Reuben, Simeon, and Gad, all camped under Reuben. To the west, you have Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin, who all camped under Ephraim. To the north, you had Dan, Asher, and Naphtali, who all camped under, do you want to take a stab at it? Dan, good job, right? All right. So the interesting thing is there's a lot you can get into this and break down if you want to do the study to take a look at it, is count the tribes, the names of the tribes, the names of the people represented by the tribes and their fathers. It's a neat study just to kind of look into and do it if you want to dig that much into it. Okay. Other than that, understand that the tribes had ways they were supposed to camp, ways they were supposed to move out. Right? Which tribe went first? Well, the tribe to the east was to go first. Judah led the charge. So who was the last one to go out? The ones to the west, under Ephraim. So who was the first to go into the land? Judah. Who was the last one to get there? Ephraim. See what I'm saying? Right? Now the interesting thing is this. If you take the names, if you start from the east and you go Judah, Reuben, and Ephraim, and Dan, you have praise, the son who hears. Reuben is to see his son. Shimon is hearing. And who brings much fruit? Ephraim. Who will judge? Dan. So the camping around the tabernacle, in my opinion, is, again, another picture to point us towards Yeshua. To praise the Son. He hears. He will bring much fruit. And he will judge. It's all another picture of Yeshua, even in how they were camped together. Now, the thing that we talk about this as a family is restoration. You know, because Israel, they were scattered. Even in Egypt, they were scattered, even though they were in the same, nation. They were still scattered around. But Yahweh is gathering his people together, right? But we see throughout the history of Israel, there's they exile and return, the scattering and regathering, all these things happening, right? Interesting. Let's take a look at this. Numbers 2:18. On the west side shall be the standard of the camp of Ephraim by their companies. And next to him shall be the tribe of Manasseh, then the tribe of Benjamin. All those who listed of the camp of Ephraim by their companies were 108,100, and they shall set out third in the march. Interesting. They shall set out third in the march. So they came 1, 2, 3, so third in the march. But interesting the way this reads. Okay, I'm thinking this can allude to something prophetic as well. Okay, so set out third in the march is I need to see that better. Ve-shlishim yesu. Okay? Yesu. Ve-shlishim or us. Man, I need to make that bigger so I can read it. Ushlishim yisau. There we go. So shlishi is a third, a third, right? Or a third part. By extension, it could be a third day. Okay, so a third day. And Yis'u is from the word nasa. The root is the word nasa, which means to lift up, to pull up, or to start a journey, or, to go forward, to march. So the idea here is that on the third day, they're starting their journey. Think about this for a minute. Even if you look in the prophecy of times and the years and Yeshua coming to gather in the lost sheep of the house of Israel, how long has that been? Has it been 2,000 years yet? So it's equating to about 2 days. So it'd be safe to say we're getting into the third day. What's going to happen? Restoration? Calling forward? Time to march out? A return? Hosea 6. So come, let us return unto Yahweh, for he has torn, he will heal us. He has smitten, he will bind up. After, what? 2 days, he will revive us. In the third day, he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight. Then shall we know, if we follow on to know Yahweh, his going forth is prepared as the morning, and he shall come to us as the rain, as the latter and former rain upon the earth. Notice, latter and former rain. This is like prophetic acknowledgement, like last days kind of things, right? And then, who's he talking to? Verse 4. O Ephraim, what shall I do unto thee? O Judah, what shall I do unto thee? For your goodness is as the morning cloud. So he's talking about this in relationship to Judah and Ephraim. Well, consider this, that all the 12 tribes of Israel came to be known by 2 tribes, Judah and Ephraim. The northern kingdom, the southern kingdom. Judah in the southern kingdom, Ephraim in the northern kingdom. Why did all the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom called by Ephraim? Because that's who led them. They were led by Ephraim. Yeroboam. Right? Okay. Here we go. The meaning and importance of these 3 tribes for the nation are not as clearly characterized as with the others. In other words, what is being said here by Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch is, we don't really know exactly why this is this way with these 3 tribes over all the others. Which kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? Why? Okay, so let's keep reading. Ephraim and Manasseh together really represent the tribe of who? Yosef. What was pronounced on Ephraim and Manasseh, in Genesis 48:19, lies in the indication of development of greatness and might, especially of Ephraim, it says he will become very great, and that his descendants will become Maloha Goyim, which means to fill the nations. So what he's saying is that Ephraim will become known as those who fill the nations, which we took to mean the complemental armor of the rest of the tribes. Another phrase we'll come back to in a little bit. The well-being of Israel is dependent on the success of Joseph. What? Not the well-being of Israel is dependent on Judah. But we're talking about all Israel, which Joseph has to be a part of. There's food for thought. All right? So when Jacob was giving the blessing to his sons, was this blessing or prophecy? The answer is yes. So it was blessing and prophecy. This is what he was doing. Genesis 48:19. So he says, you guys know the story. If not, please go back and read it so I don't have to set all this up. But he crossed his hands and Joseph says, you're blessing the wrong son. The blessing is supposed to go to Manasseh. And Jacob says, no, I know he will be great, but Ephraim's the one I'm focusing on. Okay? So this is what he says. But he shall be great, nevertheless his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his offspring shall become Maloha Goyim, the multitude of the nations. Or Malay is literally to fill, F-I-L-L. So he says that his descendants are the ones who will fill all the nations. Now, the Septuagint in this passage, the Septuagint where they took the Hebrew, they Hellenized it, written it into Greek, right? Puts it this way, plethos ethnov, which we find again in Romans 11:25. See, is there a connection there, or is it just crazy? No, there's a connection there, which we find again in Romans 11:25, where it says, I do not want you to be unaware of this mystery. What mystery is he talking about? This mystery, brothers, a partial hardening has come upon all Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. Pleroma ton ethnon. So what he says here is this hardening of Israel has happened until all who filled the nations, put it back into Hebrew, Maloha Goyim, return. So what was Paul talking about? Who's returning? All those who filled the nations. Well, who are all those who filled the nations? The northern kingdom, Ephraim, the tribes of Yosef. Those that were scattered are coming back. Well, how are they counted? How can you count by tribe if they don't really know who they are? I mean, let's face it. It's not like, the DNA testing knows which tribe you are. But this is the important thing, guys. I mean, Yah knows who his people are. It doesn't matter how far back you trace your bloodline. I guarantee you, God can trace our bloodline all the way back to Adam. Okay? So he could separate tribe by tribe by tribe, but what if we're not a part of the tribe? That's okay. Because what did we already read in Ezekiel as well? Those who were not part of the tribes are still going to have their place among the tribes. They still have a place in Israel, a place of covenant. Right? Genesis 49:22. Yosef is a fruitful bough by a spring. His branches run over the wall. Interesting. Branches run over the wall. What do we talk about branch? What does a branch represent? A family. So his branches, the families that descend from him, come from him, run over the wall. The idea of running over the wall is going outside the walls of the city and going out to the beyond. So his branches will go out beyond the wall cities and go out into, the unknown. So the descendants of Joseph will be fruitful, but his descendants will be outside the land. So those who are grafted in are the same as those who are native born. Exodus 12:49, there shall be one law for the native and for the stranger who sojourns with you. Numbers 15:15. For the assembly there shall be one statute for you and the stranger who sojourns with you. One law, one rule shall be for you and the stranger. Numbers 15:29. You shall have one law for him who does anything unintentionally, for him as a native. You get it. Okay? It's not like God has one manner of life for you guys. Now let's do something else with you. Forget all that other stuff. It doesn't work that way. Because how is he God of both if his word is not solid? If we cannot count on him and trust him to mean what he says, if he changes what he says from person to person to person to person, see, that's not the God we serve. Scripture says he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He says, I am Yahweh, I change not. Right? So when we even speak in the Scripture where the blessing to Yosef is, may you be like Ephraim and Manasseh, right? Why like Ephraim and Manasseh? Because they chose to give up their identity with the nations to be counted as a part of a people of Israel. They were in Egypt. Matter of fact, they lived in the palace. I mean, they had a good life, didn't they? I guarantee they had pretty much anything they would ever want, right? You know, the new abacus came out that year. They had it. You get my point. They chose to give up their identity among the nations to be counted as a part of Jacob, Israel. I mean, think about it in their eyes. They're a king. You know, they're the sons of kings here in Egypt, and here Jacob, he's a shepherd. Why do I want to be counted with this guy? Now, I'm going back to the palace, man. I want to live here among the sheep. But they saw something. Because when Jacob came to bless them, they didn't say, I don't want your blessing. You know, they weren't like Esau, who despised his birthright and then later said, oh yeah, maybe I should have taken it. But no, they saw the honor in being called a people with Israel. Okay? Genesis 49, 1 and 2. So Jacob called his sons, and he said, gather yourselves together. Israel is telling his sons to do what? Gather together that I may tell you what is to happen when? In the days to come. Some translations read, in the latter days. It's prophetic. Assemble and listen, sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel, your father. So what he says, gather together, is asfu, which Yosef is to add. It's the same root word there. So from ancient agriculture means to collect or accumulate. The verb root means to collect things that are scattered and to pack them together into one place. So when Jacob is telling all his sons to gather together, he's telling them from wherever you are, you're scattered like seeds all over the place. There's a harvest all over the place. We're collecting in all of that harvest into one central location. Who's the harvest? The world is the harvest. Okay? And then he says, assemble and listen. This is rooted in the agricultural process of harvesting and storing grain, collecting into one place. So he says to store in all the grain, collect in all the grain into one place, and Shema. What does Scripture tell us? That we will return and hear his voice, right? So that's what this is telling us to do. That in the latter days, the sons of Israel will be collected in from, although they're like a harvest, like the wheat harvest, the grain that is all over, they are gathered back in together, and they will be assembled together, and they will Shema the word of Yahweh. Okay? There's a calling back we're looking for. Isaiah 5:26, he will give a signal to the far away nations, and he will whistle for them to come from the ends of the earth, and here they come so fast. Again, it is Nes Lagoyim. He will give a signal. Nes is the word for signal. It's also the word for miracle. It's also the word for like a banner or a sign. So what is the sign that was lifted up that we're to pay attention to? How about Yeshua when he says the Son of Man will be lifted up? See? And they will gather all nations to him. So he will give a sign to the Goyim, to the nations, that he will whistle for them to bring them back. Well, who's among the nations? Ephraim, right? Zechariah 10:6. I will strengthen the house of Judah, and I will save the house of Joseph. Notice the two houses. He doesn't just call them all just one Israel. It's all Israel, is all the tribes back together. Okay? I will strengthen the house of Judah and will save the house of Yosef, and I will bring them back because I have compassion on them, and they shall be as though I had not rejected them, for I am Yahweh their God, and I will answer them. Then Ephraim shall become like a mighty warrior, and their hearts shall be glad as with wine. Their children shall see it and be glad. Their hearts will rejoice in Yahweh. I will whistle for them and gather them in, for I have redeemed them. I gather them in, and I have redeemed them, and they shall be as many as they were before, though I scattered them where? Among the nations, yet in far countries they shall remember me, and with their children they shall live and return. See, it's very prophetic, isn't it? I mean, spoken by the prophet, literally. And we've got to see, we're seeing this happening today, guys. We're seeing this restoration. We're seeing the people that are returning, people that are coming back to Yahweh, His heart, His ways, and developing a heart for the people of Israel, and they don't even understand or know why. God knows why. Because it's a work that He's doing. That's what's happening in the Spirit. The wind is going to these dry bones, and they're starting to rustle, and they're getting ready to come together. Genesis 50:24. Joseph says to his brothers, I'm about to die, but God will visit you and bring you up out of this land to the land He swore to Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov. And Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall what? Carry my bones from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old. They embalmed him, and he was put in the coffin in Egypt. Joseph is saying, so God will visit you, you will go from here, and when you do, you will bring the bones of Joseph with you. Bones of Joseph. Check it out. There's something to that. Okay? According to the Zondervan Illustrated Bible Backgrounds commentary, we read, one's burial place also serves as the focus for any ongoing care and remembrance after death. The request to be buried in Canaan serves as an indication that Joseph sees the future of his descendants as connected to a covenant land, a statement of faith in God's promise to bring his family back there. So Joseph is saying to the rest of Israel, when you go to the land and God brings you from here, you will take my bones with you. Now, who was these tribe again? Joseph, Ephraim was what place? The northern kingdom. The 10 tribes together. The bones of Joseph. What did it say in Ezekiel? The dry what? Bones. And when they're gathered together, they're the whole house of Israel, which is all the tribes. Psalm 22. Psalm 22 is prophetic of Yeshua. Many have talked about Psalm 22 relating to Yeshua and the crucifixion going hand in hand, right? But Psalm 22 is also speaking of the regathering of Israel. Psalm 22:14, I am poured out like water, all my bones are out of joint. Etzem is the word for bones. Etz is also the word for a tree or a stick. Okay? So, parar or parad also means divided or disconnected. So it says that bones are out of joint. We know none of his bones were broken, right? So it says the bones are out of joint. So the bones are divided or disconnected. So in Yeshua, the out of joint bones come back together and become one. Notice how I said the word for bone is also the word for stick, also the word for tree, branch. Matthew 15:24, I was sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Galatians 3:14 says that Yeshua did what he did so that the blessing of Abraham might come to the Gentiles through Yeshua, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. So in Yeshua, these bones that are out of joint can be regathered and brought back together into one. One body, one king, one shepherd, but then he's got to bring us back home. Ephesians 5:30, we are members of his body, of his flesh and his bones. 1 Corinthians 12:12, for as the body is one and has many members, but all the members of that one body being many are one body, so also is Messiah. So Ezekiel 37, again we're talking about the bones. The hand of Yahweh came upon me and brought me out of the spirit of Yahweh, set me down in the midst of the valley, and it was full of bones. The word for valley, it means something that is split. Again, we're looking at something that is split. Something is divided, and it is full of bones. Again, melah is the word used. Melah, again, as in the filling of the Gentiles. So it is filled full of bones. And then he speaks. He says, Shema, bones. Hear, bones. He's prophesying to the bones that are scattered all over, and he's telling them, commanding them to Shema. And as they Shema, they start to rattle, Spirit goes through, they're collected, brought back in together as they hear and obey the voice of Yahweh. As they hear and obey the voice of Yahweh, what does it do? It brings all those that are scattered and disconnected back together to be joined together as one body, one man, to be one people of Israel. If we're not listening to that Spirit from Yahweh, what Spirit are we listening to? Yeshua says if we don't gather, we're scattering. So the bones come together. Again, the bones are the whole house of Israel. Like Yosef, these bones have been taken to the land of Israel. Again, just reemphasizing, bones, tree, stick, all have the same root. Okay. So now Jacob says, so gather together that I may tell you what is to happen to you in just a few days ahead. No, he says, ha'acharim hayamim, in the latter days, or in the end of days. He's prophetically speaking of the last days. And what is he saying in the last days? What's going to happen? All the tribes are going to be gathered in like wheat and to be part of one another and are going to stand together. Jeremiah 30, verse 3, it says, behold, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when I will restore the fortunes of my people, who? Israel and Judah. And says the Lord, and I will bring them back to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall take possession of it. So back to the thought of the well-being of Israel is dependent on the success of Yosef. And as we talked about the tribes that were camped to the west, who were the tribes that camped to the west? Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin, right? Psalm 80, verses 1 through 3 says, to the choir master, according to the lilies, a testimony of Asaph, a psalm. Give ear, O shepherd of Israel. So he's speaking to whom? The shepherd of Israel. How does he address him? You who lead who? Joseph like a flock. You who are enthroned upon the cherubim shine forth before who? Ephraim and Benjamin and Manasseh, which is the three tribes who were camped to the west, who were supposed to go out in the third march. It says, stir up your might and come and save us, and restore us, O God. Let your face shine that we may be saved. Again, restoration, coming to him and dwelling in his presence. All this going in together. You know, are you starting to see the pictures of Ephraim being restored and Yosef being gathered in together and the people of Israel coming together as one? It's a lot of things in here, isn't there? You know, again, focus on family, right? So Israel is about to be regrouped. And Yah is now having all Israel assembled by tribes and by families. He is reordering them and reuniting them according to the tribes. Why would it matter? Because of heritage and inheritance. Israel would no longer be grouped according to their work or their ability, but grouped by their inheritance. They are not now grouped by not what they do, but who they are. Isn't it nice to know he knows you by name? It's not just what this person can do for me. He knows you by name. That's relationship, right? Psalm 68:5. He is the father of the fatherless and a protector of widows, is God in his holy habitation. God settles the solitary where? In a home. So if there's someone who's solitary and they do not have a home, they do not have a place among the family, what does God do with them? Places them among the family. And he says he leads out the prisoners to prosperity, but the rebellious dwell in a parched land. Who are you? Romans 9:25. Indeed, he says to Hosea, those who were not my people, I will call my people. And her who was not beloved, I will call beloved. And in the very place where it was said to them, you are not my people, they will be called sons of the living God. Interesting phrase, how he says sons of the living God, when it's all about family and that from the father and the house, right? Ephesians 2. The whole thing really, but verse 11, 13, and 19. So remember, you Gentiles, at one time, you Gentiles in the flesh called the uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision, made the flesh by hands. Remember, you were, at that time, separated from the Messiah, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now in Messiah Yeshua, you who were once far off have been brought near, so you are no longer what? Strangers and aliens, but what? Fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God. Who is the household of God? Israel. Ezekiel 20, verse 34, I will bring you out from the people, and I will gather you out of the countries where you were scattered, with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and with wrath poured out. Ezekiel 20, 41, as a pleasing aroma I will accept you, when I bring you out from the people and gather you out of the countries where you have been scattered, and I will manifest my holiness among you in the sight of the nations. How can he manifest his holiness in the sight of the nations? Because that's where you are. And he says, and he will show himself glorious through you, especially when he calls you and brings you back. It's a lot here, isn't there? So it's kind of a wild way to introduce the book of Numbers. You know, I hope it's been encouraging for you, but I hope it challenges you. And I hope that it causes us to approach this book in a manner that changes our lives. Amen?